So you found a way to shine light into what you see as these sort of dark secrets in companies and in government. Light is good, but do you see any irony in the fact that in order for you to shine that light, you have to yourself create secrecy around your sources?
Not really. I mean, we don't have any WikiLeaks dissidents yet. We don't have sources who are dissidents on other sources. Should they come forward, I mean, that will be a tricky situation for us, but we are presumably acting in such a way that people feel morally compelled to continue our mission, not to screw it up.
I'd actually be interested, just based on what we've heard so far, just to get I'm curious as to the opinion in the TED audience, and you know, there might be a couple of views of WikiLeaks and of Julian. You know, hero, people's hero, bringing this important light, dangerous troublemaker. Who's got the hero view? Who's got the dangerous troublemaker view? Well,
oh, come on.
It's a soft crowd, Julian, a soft crowd. We have to try better. Let's show them another example. Now, here's something that you haven't yet leaked, but I think for TED, you are. I mean, it's an intriguing story that's just happened, right?
Yeah.
What is this?
So this is like a sample of what we do sort of every day. So late last year, in November last year, there was a series of well blowouts in Albania, like the well blowout in the Gulf of Mexico, but not quite as big. And we got a report, a sort of engineering analysis into what happened, saying that in fact security guards from some rival various competing oil firms had in fact parked trucks there and blown them up. And the Albanian part of the Albanian government was in this, etc., etc. And the engineering report had nothing on the top of it. So it was an extremely difficult document for us. We couldn't verify it because we didn't know who wrote it and knew what it was about. So we were kind of skeptical that maybe it was a competing oil firm just sort of playing the issue up. So under that basis, we put it out and said, look, we're skeptical about this thing. We don't know, but what can we do? The material looks good, it feels right, but we just can't verify it. And we then got a letter just this week from the company who wrote it, wanting to track down the source. Saying, hey, we want to track down the source, and we were like, oh, tell us more. What document is it precisely you're talking about? Can you show that you had legal authority over that document? Is it really yours? So they sent us this screenshot with the author in the like Microsoft Word ID. Yeah. That's happened quite a lot, though. This is like one of our methods of identifying, verifying what material is to try and get these guys to write letters.
Yeah. Have you had information from inside BP?
Yeah, we have a lot, but I mean, at the moment, we are undergoing a sort of serious fundraising and engineering effort. So our publication rate is, over the past few months, has been sort of minimised while we're re-engineering our back systems for the phenomenal public interest that we have. That's a problem. I mean, like any sort of growing startup organisation, we are sort of overwhelmed by our growth, and that means we're getting enormous quantity of whistleblower disclosures of a very high caliber, but don't have enough people to actually process and vet this information.
So that's the key bottleneck, basically journalistic volunteers and or the funding of journalistic salaries.
Yep. Yep.
Right.
And trusted people. I mean, we're an organisation that is hard to grow very quickly because of the sort of material we deal with. So we have to restructure in order to have people who would deal with the highest national security stuff and then lower security cases.
So help us understand a bit more about you personally and how you came to do this. And I think I read that as a kid, you went to 37 different schools. Can that be right?
You know, my parents were in the movie business and then on the run from a cult. So the combination between the two.
I mean, A psychologist might say that's a recipe for breeding paranoia.
What, the movie business?
Exactly. But you were also, I mean, you were also a hacker at an early age and ran into the authorities early on.
Well, I was a journalist. You know, I was a very young journalist activist at an early age. I wrote a magazine and was prosecuted for it when I was a teenager. So you have to be careful with hacker. I mean, there's a method that can be deployed for various things. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's mostly deployed by the Russian mafia in order to steal your grandmother's bank accounts. So this phrase is not as nice as it used to be.
Yeah, well, I certainly don't think you're stealing anyone's grandmother's bank account. But what about, I mean, your core values? Can you give us a sense of what they are and maybe some incident in your life that helped determine them?
I'm not sure about the incident, but the core values, well, capable, generous men do not create victims, they nurture victims. And that's something from my father and something from other capable, generous men that has been in my life.
Capable, generous men do not create victims, they nurture victims.
Yeah, and, you know, I'm a combative person, so I'm not actually so big on the nurture, but some way, there is another way of nurturing victims, which is to police perpetrators of crime. And so that is something that has been in my character for a long time.
So just tell us very quickly in the last minute that's remaining, what happened in Iceland? You basically published something there, ran into trouble with the bank. The news service there was injuncted from running the story. Instead, they publicized your site. That made you very high profile in Iceland. What happened next?
Yeah, so this is a great case. You know, Iceland went through this financial crisis. It was the hardest hit of any country in the world. Its banking sector was 10 times the GDP of the rest of the economy. Anyway, so we released this report in July last year, and the national TV station was injuncted 5 minutes before it went on air, like out of a movie. Injunction landed on the news desk, and the newsreader was like, this has never happened before, what do we do? Well, we just show the website instead for all that time as a filler. And we became very famous in Iceland, went to Iceland and spoke about this issue. And there was a feeling in the community that should never happen again. And as a result, working with Icelandic politicians and some other international legal experts, we put together a new sort of package of legislation for Iceland to sort of become an offshore haven for the free press. With the strongest journalistic protections in the world, with a new Nobel Prize for freedom of speech. Iceland's a Nordic country, so like Norway, it's able to tap into the system. And just a month ago, this was passed by the Icelandic parliament unanimously.
Wow. So, last question, Julian. When you think of the future then, do you think it's more likely to be Big Brother exerting more control, more secrecy, or us watching Big Brother, or it's just all to be played for either way?
I'm not sure which way it's going to go. I mean, there's enormous pressures to harmonize freedom of speech legislation and transparency legislation around the world, within the EU, between China, the United States. Which way is it going to go? It's hard to see. That's why it's a very interesting time to be in, because with just a little bit of effort, we can shift it one way or the other.
Well, it looks like I'm reflecting the audience's opinion to say, Julian, be careful and all power to you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.